One actor financed a desperate revival to save the franchise. Another abandoned Hollywood to battle a severe medical diagnosis alone in the woods. Commanding officer spent years broadcasting real wartime casualties before guiding this fictional fleet. And one child actor nearly died on his very next set. Let's start with the golden boy of the colonies, a man whose dedication to the ship defined the rest of his life. As Captain Apollo, he was the golden boy of the fleet, bound by duty and military protocol. Off-screen, he was a relentless renegade who defied network executives to keep the franchise breathing when Hollywood had completely abandoned it. Hatch began his career in theater before starring in the streets of San Francisco, but Apollo defined his existence. After the original series was canceled, he wrote 3 continuation novels. By 1999, he was financing Battlestar: The Second Coming, a pilot trailer he built entirely from scratch. He later returned as Tom Zarek in the 2004 reimagined series, bridging the gap between 2 generations. By the late 1990s, he was standing beside a folding table at crowded fan conventions, screening his self-funded footage on a small television monitor. Those close to him noted that his dedication often blurred the line between the actor and the leader he played. He rarely spoke about the financial toll of his loyalty, choosing instead to focus on the community. Richard Hatch died on February 7, 2017, at 71 years old, following a private battle with pancreatic cancer. The man who played humanity's brightest pilot spent his life refusing to let the lights go out on his ship. But while Apollo held on to the past, his brash wingman had to completely alter his own future to survive. The man who played the fleet's most reckless, cigar-chomping pilot treated his own prostate cancer by retreating to a remote cabin and refusing conventional medicine. As Lieutenant Starbuck, Dirk Benedict was the ultimate carefree survivor, a man who relied on luck and charm to escape any trap. In reality, when faced with a severe diagnosis in the 1970s, he abandoned Hollywood entirely to take complete control of his fate. Born Dirk Neuwenner in Montana, he changed his surname after a memorable breakfast of Eggs Benedict. He soon landed the role of Starbuck, turning the character into an icon. But his most defining battle happened privately. Diagnosed with a prostate tumor, he rejected standard surgery. He relocated to a secluded cabin, adopting a strict macrobiotic diet. He sat alone in the quiet woods, miles from any studio, eating whole grains while waiting to see if his gamble would pay off, and it worked. He documented the ordeal in his memoir, Confessions of a Kamikaze Cowboy. In 2026, Dirk Benedict is 81 years old, living a quiet life away from the Los Angeles spotlight, having outlasted every medical prediction made about him. The fleet's youngest pilot, however, faced a much different kind of hazard when the cameras stopped. The child actor who played the fleet's resilient orphan nearly died twice on the set of his next major project. As Boxy, Noah Hathaway was the innocent, emotional core of the series, a heavily protected survivor walking the metal corridors with his robotic dog. But the reality of child stardom offered him no such protection. Born in Los Angeles, he began appearing in commercials at age 3 before booking the role that made him a science fiction fixture at just 6 years old. When he was cast as Atreyu in the 1984 fantasy movie The Never-Ending Story, the innocence vanished. Hathaway performed his own dangerous stunts, leading to severe injuries. In one chilling moment, a heavy horse fell directly on top of him, and he was nearly trampled. Later, he was pulled under the dark, heavy water of the Swamp of Sadness set, unable to breathe until the crew finally dragged him out. What followed was a complete withdrawal from the industry. The physical and mental toll pushed him away from regular acting and built a very different life. He pivoted into an entirely different existence, working as a martial arts instructor, street dance teacher, and professional tattoo artist. In 2026, Noah Hathaway is 54 years old and occasionally attends conventions, but mostly focuses on his private businesses. While he was escaping Hollywood, the show's commanding officer was cementing a completely different legacy. Before he became the ultimate paternal figure guiding humanity to safety, the actor who played Commander Adama spent World War II delivering actual death notices over the radio. As Adama, Lorne Greene was the stoic, unshakable leader, holding a fractured civilization together through sheer moral authority. Off-screen, he had already mastered that authoritative tone during the darkest days of the 1940s. Born in Ottawa, Canada, he began his career as a principal news broadcaster for the CBC. His deep, resonant delivery earned him the nickname the Voice of Doom, as he spent years reading the harrowing casualty lists of Canadian soldiers. He carried that heavy, commanding presence into acting, leading to his monumental 14-season run as Ben Cartwright on the television classic Bonanza. When he boarded the Galactica at age 63, he brought an established gravitas that no younger actor could fake. He loved his Western roots so deeply that he actually constructed a perfect replica of the Ponderosa Ranch House in Arizona, walking through the identical wooden halls just to feel at home. From the outside, he appeared indestructible, anchoring multiple massive television franchises while recording country music albums on the side. Lorne Greene died on September 11, 1987, at 72 years old, following complications from pneumonia. He spent his career playing men who carried the weight of the world, and he carried it flawlessly until the end. But the man pulling the strings of the enemy fleet was fighting an entirely different battle behind the scenes. The man who played humanity's greatest traitor was originally written to be executed in the pilot episode, but he was so magnetic the producers rewrote the entire series just to keep him. As Count Baltar, John Colicos was the embodiment of elegant malice, selling out his own species with a theatrical smirk. In reality, he was a trained stage veteran who accidentally carved out a permanent legacy in science fiction television. Born in Canada, Colicos possessed a booming voice and a commanding presence honed through years of traditional Shakespearean theater. He brought an undeniable theatricality to every villain he played. In 1967, he became the very first actor to ever portray a Klingon on Star Trek, wearing heavy makeup and creating the ruthless blueprint for an entire fictional alien race. When he arrived on the Galactica set in 1978, his character was slated to be beheaded by the Cylons immediately. But watching his footage in the editing room, executives realized his villainy was too valuable to discard. Viewers can picture him standing under the harsh studio lights, dressed in heavy velour robes, delivering dialogue with such intensity that the writers scrambled to film new scenes sparing his life. After the show ended, he continued acting, reprising his famous Klingon role decades later on Deep Space Nine. John Colicos died on March 6, 2000, at 71 years old, from a series of heart attacks. He played the ultimate betrayer, but his dedication to his craft was absolutely unwavering. Meanwhile, the ship's second-in-command was quietly breaking television barriers of his own. Long before he became the reliable military anchor of a surviving civilization, the man behind the uniform was a pioneering figure in American broadcast journalism. As Colonel Ty, Terry Carter was the pragmatic, grounded counterpart to Commander Adama, a steady hand guiding a desperate fleet. But the true story of his career is one of quiet, methodical barrier breaking that had nothing to do with outer space. Born in Brooklyn, Carter was one of the first black actors to secure a regular role on an American TV sitcom starring in the Phil Silvers Show in the 1950s. More profoundly, in 1965, he stepped out of the acting world to become New England's first black television anchor. He later returned to acting, gaining wide recognition as Sergeant Broadhurst on the long-running detective series McCloud before boarding the Galactica. In later interviews, he reflected on his diverse career with quiet pride, fully aware of the distinct paths he had cleared for others. He transitioned into producing and directing documentaries, remaining an active intellectual force well into his golden years. Terry Carter died on April 23, 2024, at the age of 95. He spent a single season playing a spacefaring pioneer, but he lived a century actually being one. Yet for another member of the bridge crew, the journey was abruptly cut short by an invisible enemy. The actress who commanded the ship's communication hub was forced to abandon Hollywood entirely when an undiagnosed illness stripped away all her physical energy. As Lieutenant Athena, Maren Jensen projected competence and authority, managing complex bridge operations while balancing the heavy expectations of being the commander's daughter. Off-screen, however, she was quietly losing a terrifying battle with her own body. Jensen began as a model before being discovered by a talent agent, quickly landing the high-profile Galactica role that seemed to guarantee a massive Hollywood career. She soon dated Eagles singer Don Henley, placing her firmly in the center of the celebrity spotlight. But shortly after wrapping Wes Craven's horror film Deadly Blessing in 1981, her health deteriorated rapidly. She was eventually diagnosed with Epstein-Barr syndrome, a viral illness that causes profound, debilitating chronic fatigue. She was unable to muster the strength to attend auditions, while the industry simply moved on without her. Reports suggested she spent years searching for a cure, retreating completely from public life to prioritize her recovery. She eventually conquered the illness by the late 1980s, but she never returned to the screen. In 2026, Maren Jensen is 69 years old, living a private life away from the entertainment industry, having successfully reinvented herself in business and cosmetics. Her time on television was brief, but surviving an invisible illness requires its own kind of heroism. Meanwhile, another woman on the ship made an entirely different choice to step away. The woman who played the fleet's most complex romantic figure began her Hollywood journey by writing fan letters from her childhood bedroom. As Cassiopeia, Laurette Spang evolved from a controversial socialator to a dedicated medical technician, proving her character's vast emotional depth over the course of the series. Off-screen, her life followed a much more traditional trajectory than the futuristic courtesan she portrayed. She spent her teenage years obsessively watching Bonanza and Dark Shadows, writing passionate letters to her favorite actors. She was eventually discovered by a Universal Studios talent agent, leading to a contract that placed her in classic shows like Happy Days and Charlie's Angels. Following her time on the Galactica, she continued acting, notably appearing as a ski instructor on Three's Company. But the most defining shift occurred in 1980, when she married soap opera star John McCook. Over time, she voluntarily stepped back from the industry to raise their three children, Jake, Becky, and Molly. From the outside, walking away from fame seems difficult, but she embraced the transition with complete certainty. In 2026, Laurette Spang is 75 years old and remains happily married to McCook, occasionally appearing at sci-fi conventions to honor her past. She started out as a fan writing letters, stepped onto the screen, and then walked away completely on her own terms. The show promised humanity could survive anything if it kept moving. The people who built that argument had varying results with it in their own lives. Some made it, some didn't. But all of them deserved more time in a story that belonged to them.